listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works, a business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I am Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is the standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for joining me on Her Profit Era today.
Thanks, Cindy. Nice to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Could you share a little bit about yourself and how you started Parched Floral?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing this business for about 5 years, but only about 2 years full time. So it started back in 2020, and my father passed away suddenly in November of 2020. And the story goes, everyone sent me condolence flowers, as people do, right? They want to
Right.
send you flowers to just say sorry. And my living room was just filled with tons of flowers, and I were sent a particular bouquet that really kind of started this whole journey, which was a replica of my bridal bouquet. And since I
Aw,
spent a lot of time with my dad around my wedding and then at my wedding, and he walked me down the aisle with obviously flowers, this particular bouquet I did not want to throw away. So I went to my computer and I started typing in, how do I save flowers? I mean, we all have hung flowers upside down. We've all tried to dry them
right.
out naturally, but they don't look the best. And I just wanted to preserve them. And so I came across this whole wide world of flower preservation, and I started practicing for what became years, and it just became something that I really, really love.
That's such a beautiful story. And what were you doing
hmm
like prior to starting the business?
So prior to that, I had many different titles. For the most part, for almost 20 years, I was in corporate. So I worked for law firms, banks, doing corporate client events and internal events. I was chief of staff for a while at a startup, nonprofit. So I've done a bunch of different things, but never was an entrepreneur. Never thought I would end up being an entrepreneur. And so it was in my now I'm in, I guess, my midlife that I ventured into this journey as a mom and as a someone that's lived their first half with some experience, and I was ready to take the plunge because of all
Wow, that's such a beautiful story and how you started your entrepreneurial journey.
that.
You were just on season 20, episode 4 of like Dragon's Den. And I'd love to hear like your experience. Like, was Dragon's Den something you were always thinking about, like when you started the floral business, or did it just accidentally kind of happen?
So I actually watched Dragon's Den from the very, very beginning. When I was in university, I always loved the concept. I loved it. Used to be a very different back in the day. It was,
Yeah.
people coming up with inventions, and I just thought I just got so much. I loved the show. I got so many laughs from it and what people came up with. Some of them smart, most of them not. But
Yeah.
the over 20 years, the show has really has become more formal. The founders are, real business people, real entrepreneurs, less about inventions, more
hmm
about, taking their businesses to the next level and scaling. So when I started this business, I had no, I've always had Dragon's Den, something that I liked, but never once did I ever think, oh, I want to be on that. Even when I started my business, it was, flower preservation is a fairly new, I guess, business to people, a new kind of
Yeah.
service that people haven't heard of unless you're in the wedding industry. So, no, it honestly just fell into my lap. I was on Instagram one day and it popped up, apply now. And
Yeah.
I thought, wait a second, wouldn't that just be cool to check that out and see? And I've been running my business for a couple of years, so I've got clients, I've got business, I've got money coming in, money going out, and so
Yeah.
I thought maybe this is going to be something that investors would be interested in. Mhm.
That's so cool. And then was it like a Zoom kind of application interview or was it like in person?
Yes, so the very first application you do online. So you do an online application and then you do a video, basically a video pitch. And
Yeah.
if you're successful, then producers send you an email and they say, "Hey, we're interested in having you come pitch in front of our producers in Toronto at the CBC building." And so it's a very quick process. So that was in January when I did the video audition. I
Oh,
got a
wow.
call back in a month later, and then I was in front of producers. And then I think it was like 3 weeks after that, I got a call to actually come into the den and pitch, and that I would be on the show. But even
Oh,
then, you
wow.
don't know you're going to be on the show because you can still pitch in front of the dragons, and you don't make it to air. So
Oh,
it's
wow. I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's quite the process. But they were so organized, and the whole show, it was just everyone was very friendly. It was never uncomfortable, super supportive. That's putting yourself out there scary, right? And it's such
Right.
a it's I should say, I guess it's a prestigious show because it's something that everyone knows in Canada. We all know the show. We all
Yeah.
know what it's about. And when you're putting yourself out there, you kind of have those feelings of, am I right to be there? Is this something that I should even be doing? Is this going to be foolish? Is my business going to be, exposed? And am I going
Right.
to be humiliated? You have all those feelings going through. Even from the very first application, I thought, okay, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
And what was it like, like practicing your pitch and like figuring out what you want to say? Because that must have been like so nerve-wracking too.
Yes, that was probably there was so much preparation for that. You basically have a full month to prep, which is not that much time because a lot
Yeah.
of the times you're meeting with the producer, you get assigned a producer, and they are going over the show elements
Mhm.
of what you're going to be doing, where you're going to stand, what your setup's going to look like, what dragons are going to be focusing on. They don't actually talk about content. They don't talk about your business. They don't talk about numbers.
Oh,
It's
wow.
the practice from the show's producers and you is all about the actual reality show. So on the back end, that was definitely the biggest that was the biggest prep was, okay, what's happening in my business? They're going to ask me all these different questions that I actually have no idea about.
Right.
So the first thing I did was book a call with my accountant and my bookkeeper, and I said, okay, am I in the red? Am I profiting? What are my margins? What's going on here? And so that's probably the hardest part of all of this was just prepping because it's basically all numbers when you get down to it.
So true. And then when you were
Mhm.
actually like pitching in front of the dragons, what was that like? Like just being in front of them?
Honestly, I don't even remember it. I remember going into when you go backstage into your green room, you
Yeah.
get to practice for I was in there for about 3 hours. Like I got called in, I think it was 7:30 I started,
Yeah.
and I didn't get called in until about lunchtime.
Oh, wow.
So there was a lot of time to be practicing, but it was that part's nerve-wracking because I kept on going blank and I kept on saying, I'm gonna forget, they're gonna ask me, I don't
Right.
remember. I had Robin, who works with me at Parched Floral, she was in that room with me and she said, no, wrong, 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 because I had practiced, but I couldn't remember. It was just one of those things, right? You're so
Yeah,
scared.
right.
So going in, I was terrified. Walking down the hallway, you have a pretty long walk. But
Yeah.
once I stood in there, even though I have no idea what I said when I was in there, I mean, they show 8 minutes, but I was in there for an hour.
Yeah.
I completely basically blacked out. And I've heard that from others that are on the show. It's like almost this thing you go into auto drive.
Right.
And yeah, so I was at ease there. I don't remember being nervous. I just kind of just did it and I was like on. It was kind of like, okay, let's go. It's go time. You answer the questions. I knew I was fully prepared. I knew the answers were in my head somewhere. So the
Yeah.
adrenaline kicked in. So that's it.
And then what was it like? Like you didn't end up with a deal. The dragons
Hmm.
told you like your business isn't scalable, just with the
Hmm.
timing of how long it takes to preserve the flowers. So how did you
Hmm.
take like their feedback?
It was something that I prepped for. I did try to put myself into their shoes.
Yeah.
From an investor perspective, it is true. This business can. It's not to say that it can't scale. It's not going to scale to the level that they want as quickly as they want, and that's
So
kind of
true.
they said that, and I agree with them. I completely agree. That's one of the when I was building this business. Now I'm in a studio, but when I started in my basement, I thought, okay, the demand is here. My margins are good, but the time that it takes is basically eating up profit just constantly. I'm paying people to do the work, I'm trying to pay myself, and that was the hard part. It's such a slow, it's not even a quick art. It's not like I'm
Yeah.
doing paintings and I can speed up. It's so slow. Everything's so delicate and intricate. So, and as I've progressed over the years, I've gotten much, much faster, and I figured out different shortcuts that isn't going to compromise the quality of the product, but that can
Right.
actually speed things along. So, I mean, that part is understandable. To scale it, you're going to need more of me or more like me, and I'm going to have to teach them, and the quality goes down if you don't teach the
Hmm.
right people the right things. And so it's true, they want to make a lot of money quick, and
Yeah.
this business isn't that.
That's such a great perspective.
Hmm.
What was it like rewatching it, like on TV and like with your friends and family? Did you feel like you just really loved it like twice?
Yeah, I didn't. So you don't get to see it before it airs, which is
Yeah.
crazy because
So
you
you're just
never know
waiting.
how, yeah, and you don't know how it's going to be edited. At the end of the day, it's reality TV. They want to make
Right.
a juicy show. They want to see the arguments, they want to see the personalities of the dragons come out. What I have noticed is the show is definitely more supportive of entrepreneurs. They're trying to, I think, where they had some dragons in the past that really ripped into the
Hmm.
entrepreneur and kind of
Yeah.
embarrassed them. I haven't seen that in a couple of years. They will be very hard on you. They will tell the truth and they will question you. You have to be able to back up what you're saying. So they
Yeah.
are very direct in that point, but they're not rude in any way. So that's the part that I was actually, when I went in, I'm like, wow, they're actually very nice. They were actually very complimentary. They said, this is a great lifestyle business for you, not a scalable one for us. And so all of that stuff, it all made sense. They were really nice. And I think that's a big change. And I think that that's something, you know, when entrepreneurs are thinking about going on the show, or thinking about pitching to investors not on the show, let's say any investors, you
Yeah.
can put your business out there, and it's up to them whether they think that they want to support you, if they want to support your mission, if they want to support what you mean or what you're doing, opposed to making money. There's different type of investors, right?
Right.
I actually had a watch party here, and so since I didn't see it before everyone got here, it was
Yeah.
kind of the one of those things again. You can't predict what they're going to edit your 1 hour down to 8 minutes, what they're going to make you look like. The facial expressions might not be actually at
So
the
true.
same time as you're answering something. So I was super nervous about that. I just didn't want to be embarrassed. You know,
Yeah.
it's my own it's my own thing, it's my own self-consciousness maybe, but I just was very afraid to invite a bunch of people. You also can't tell them what the outcome is. So
Yeah.
here I am inviting, I think I had about 40 people, 35, 40 people at my studio to watch the show that are, I'm assuming, all thought that I got a deal because I'm having a party.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the funniest thing when they said, when the last dragon said no,
Yeah. Oh.
and they're like, I'm out, Michelle Romano. I remember they all turned to me and they're like watching my reaction. I'm like,
Oh.
I know, I didn't get a deal, I know. But so I did a whole speech after. I said, listen, guys, I knew I didn't get a deal, obviously. I still wanted to celebrate this big milestone in my life because it was a great experience. I learned a lot, and I just thought it was great to celebrate the business whether or not you get a deal or not. You know,
So true.
it's gonna
Yeah.
work out hopefully, and we've gotten to a point in the business now that it's, attractive to investors, but maybe not at the point where it needs to be yet. But we're the trajectory is good.
Did you notice like a difference in like the demand of your services after the show aired?
So the show aired just a few weeks ago in November.
Yeah.
For those that are watching or listening, this might be a while from when you're listening, but the show aired, and it's not busy season right now. So it's not wedding season. It's not my
Right.
typical booking season. It is about to be. So typically engagement season
Hmm.
is from Christmas because people get engaged a lot over the holidays,
Right.
all the way to February 14th, of course, Valentine's Day. So that's when we see a huge portion of our bookings happen. And then, of course, into the summer as well. But engagement season isn't there yet. But I do think once we get to that spot, once we get to, bookings and things like that, I do think there will be a positive response. I've seen a lot of, activity on my Instagram. I've seen a lot of website visits checking out my
Right.
business. So typically, we're not the first thing that people book when they get engaged. Usually, it's the venue.
Yeah.
And then, there's like kind of an order. We're usually, to be honest, one of the last things people think about, even though, of course, we hope as flower preservation becomes more prominent as a thing in front of brides, that they'll start to book us when they book other vendors. So now we're seeing more when they book their florist, they'll think about flower preservation because their florists now know about it. So
Yeah.
they're suggesting it, which before they weren't doing. So yeah, I think it'll be good. I mean, fingers crossed, you never know, but I think it'll be good.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
And did you have like any pushback of like how long it takes once like brides find out about how long they'd have to wait until they get their preserved flowers?
No, I mean, in flower preservation, there's different artists that do different methods.
Yeah.
I'm very transparent. I'm very transparent when they, look online, when you book my service. I have even, you know, before you actually hit checkout on my website, you have to
Yeah.
say that you're okay with that turnaround time. And that's because I never want to trick people into my services. I
Mhm.
never want to feel pressure, even though I do feel pressure all the time to get orders out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, some brides will order a main frame and they'll add, five different add-ons for their family members after the fact. So you don't actually really know how long each piece is going to take you. You don't know what flowers are going to be involved. Some take a few hours, others take several hours, depending on the flowers that I'm reconstructing. So I'm very transparent. I do have people say, I don't know if I'm comfortable waiting that long. And in the end, they actually always do feel comfortable with it. If they like my art and they
Yeah.
want my pieces, that is just what it is. There's many preservation artists now in Canada that they can choose from that have much faster turnaround times. And that's, I always, suggest if you do want to, we might not be the right fit if you want something quick. So I always say too, with my turnaround time, flowers are aging in the press. And while I
Mhm.
hold on to them while they're in queue, they're also aging. So when I get to them, they're actually in their kind of their final stage, which is kind of nice. They're not going to get their piece and then it's all of a sudden going to change. It's they're going to get it and it's going to be as it is, which is nice.
That's so cool and interesting to learn.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
what's like the process like? Do you only work with like people in Ontario or do you work with people Canada wide?
So we are Canada wide. We're not in the States yet. There hasn't been any cross border
Mhm.
work for any preservationists in Canada, A, because of the tariffs right now, and B,
Right.
because getting fresh flowers across the border is obviously very risky, right? It can be held up in
Right.
customs and you don't want them to die. So because of that, we're just in Canada, but you can ship your flowers overnight anywhere in Canada with different mail services. It's sometimes pricey if you're coming from Vancouver, which we have a ton of brides come. It could be anywhere from 50 to 250 to $300 to ship your
Oh
flowers.
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, most province Vancouver, you're far, so you're probably one of the
Yeah.
more expensive ones. If you're out in the middle of somewhere very very far, then yes, it's going to be expensive. But for the most part, it's about $50 to $75 to ship overnight to us, and it can take up to 3 days sometimes in the mail. But ideally, it's overnight, but depends on your budget.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the bride will ship it to you and then you guys
Yeah.
keep it in like a preservative kind of area until you work on it?
Yes, so we have basically if you ship it, it goes to one location. If you drop it off, you come to our studio here, and all of them get basically stored in a dry room until they're ready to be worked with, and they stay in their presses, and then they move on to the next step is we take them out and put them into sealed boxes, and they basically stay waiting for, about 4 months until they start getting work done. So it takes 2 months to actually press them though.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. And do you have
Yeah.
like a team hired or is it mostly you doing everything?
Yes, so I mostly do designing now. We have a team of there's a few girls that do pressing, that do the actual fresh flower pressing, and then I have another woman that does the color correction and the building. I do that as well, and then I do all of the designing myself. And then I have someone else that's doing the gluing and the
Oh
framing and the
wow.
shipping. So it's actually a very long process. People think, put it in a book, press it, take it
Yeah.
out, and glue it down. And that's actually what I thought it was at the beginning. But the reason why flower preservation for any artist is so expensive is because you're actually paying for time. You're not paying for a product because you're giving us the product.
Right.
Our frames are, we use solid wood frames, so that's actually a big expense for us. And the glass, we use 99% UV glass. So that stuff's there, but it's time. You're paying for just someone to sit there all day and put together
Yeah.
flowers. Hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Did you hire like a team right away as soon as you started the business or at the beginning were you kind of doing everything and then slowly kind of hired?
Yes, I was solo for the first year and a half. I think it was in my basement. I couldn't have someone coming into my house and working out of my
Yeah.
basement. It just wasn't going to work. So I was on my own, but I kept my orders low. So that was kind of when I started getting, we're seeing higher demand, and I was starting to turn away so much business, which happened my first year. Because I only had, obviously, when I was working part time, I only had weekends to work and evenings, and I have
Yeah.
kids, so evenings were kind of out. And so, I mean, I still worked when I put them to bed, I'd work at night. But when I saw that demand go up, I thought, okay, well, A, maybe this could go full time.
Hmm.
And B, I'm going to need help if I want to grow the business. I could have just stayed, taking a couple commissions here and there and stayed in my basement and worked on my own. But for me, I don't know what it was, but I just thought, okay, like, let's do this. Let's try it out and let's grow. And it was year two that I got this studio. I've been in here for a year and a half, and it's just it's a huge space. And now I have one full-time girl here, and then the other ones are remote. But yeah, it's just a place where clients can actually physically come in, see the frames, touch flowers if they want to kind of, you know, get a feel for the process when they come in and drop off.
That's so cool. And then when you
Hmm.
started up, did you have like a safety net of cash going into your business? Or
Yeah, so not safety net. It was a small savings that I had, emergency funds, that
yeah.
isn't supposed to be used for starting your own business, but that's what mine was used for. So I went from obviously being in corporate for almost 20 years. I was a little bit higher up and I was making a very good salary. So leaving that and going to flower preservation. So not only starting your own business, but starting your own business as an artist. I'd never been an artist. I'm not a trained artist. I was interested in art, you know,
Yeah.
growing up, but I never took it in school or anything like that. So I'm trying a new medium. I'm starting a new first business ever. And
Yeah.
so I have a little bit of cash. Like, let's see, I don't need a lot of cash to start up this business right now. So I
Yeah.
just used that and I didn't pay myself. I just used savings for startup costs. So obviously equipment and I had to buy all the cardboard and paper and presses and all of that
Right.
kind of stuff, the website, all of that kind of thing, the back end stuff. So yeah, I just bootstrapped it the whole first year and a half.
That's awesome. And what's
Yeah.
like one money lesson you wish you would have learned sooner?
That cash flow is the killer. Like, honestly, that was always like, I'm like, oh, look at all this revenue, revenue, revenue. And then I'm like, where's all my money? I have zero
Right.
dollars in the bank. And now I've got to pay employees. And that's my biggest thing is I had heard that term, cash flow kills so many businesses. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not true. At first, it was like, look at
Yeah.
all this money that's coming in. But
Yeah.
then it's like, there's overhead, there's materials, there's supplies, there's, people to pay.
Right.
So I wasn't paying myself for a very long time and I was never profitable. I wasn't profitable even though I had lots of revenue. And from someone that failed grade 11 math, like it was one of those things that I didn't think about when I started the business. The biggest money lesson was I don't know numbers.
Yeah.
I probably should have focused in on that before I dove in. Because I would have it's not that you can't, it's not that you need to understand your numbers. If you want to be successful, you need to understand your numbers. And the anxiety that I felt all the time because I didn't understand it. And to be honest, I still don't
Yeah.
completely, much more now from prepping for Dragon's Den. But if you were to ask me right now, what's your balance sheet look like? I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's the thing. When you're an artist or a small business owner that's never owned a business, you get so involved in the doing that
Right.
you're like, I'll worry about that later. Taxes, what taxes? My accountant will tell me when stuff's due. And then you get very overwhelmed quickly.
Totally. And what
So
has
that's the life.
changed since? Do you have like regular meetings with your accountant, bookkeeper?
I don't, I should, but they're there if I have any questions. So they're very responsive if I send them an email to say, hey, I need to reconcile this, or
Right.
is this an expense? They're there for me. But even now, being, technically 2 full years in, or actually almost 3 full years in, fiscal years in, I probably should still have a better handle on my books. Um, all I know is I'm paying the bills,
Yeah.
I'm paying myself, and I'm keeping the lights on. So I think that's my next step in my journey, is really digging deeper into that and thinking, okay, where can I cut costs? How can I get better cash flow and move forward now? Because now I'm becoming more sophisticated. Now I'm not just this, hokey
Yeah.
pokey business. Now it's a real business. And that's kind of where I think that's my biggest lesson in the financial aspect of this business, is just, now what? Let's get to the next level.
Yeah, totally. And then, like,
Hmm.
especially with, like, your busy season with weddings, do you have, like, a
Hmm.
safety net and emergency savings during that slow period so you can still cover your overhead and your team?
So I don't know if you, so I, one thing that I've taken advantage of has been, so I did take on some business debt. One, I'm a big fan of. The other one, it's still kind of scary, but the first type of loan that I took on was, is actually Shopify Capital loan.
Okay.
And this is what's cool about Shopify Capital. And if maybe there's, I think there's a couple other different types of loans, but it's basically you pay a fixed amount. They give you a set amount of money for that fixed amount. The rate, so that, like, let's say it's $12,000, maybe the fixed amount will be $850, which is like 7.1% or something, I think was the last one.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about that is it's sales based. So they basically offer you money once they see a large amount of sales going through your website. So unless you grow, like Shopify's interest is in your business doing well, because
Yeah.
you pay back that loan within a set amount of time, it's usually a year. Every time you make a sale, that money gets paid back to your loan. And there's no compounded interest, there's nothing like that. You're just basically, you make a sale, 25% goes to the loan. What's cool about being a small business and having that opportunity is I don't have to think about it. If I have a slow
Yeah.
period, it's not wedding season, I don't pay back
Right.
anything. So it's all sales based. And that was really cool. So I've done three of those. I've done three rounds and paid
That's
them off
awesome.
three times. So, I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money. I think it was like 10 grand each. So it ended up being about $30,000 that I've borrowed and paid back. I just finished my last one recently, and that helps with cash flow. So that's the biggest thing was I take deposits from my customers very far in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance. But I'm not actually seeing that's paying for material costs, but I'm not actually seeing the second half until I produce the work or they drop off. So to help with that, that's I've actually changed kind of the way things work, which is they leave a deposit well in advance, and then when they drop off their flowers, they pay the final balance. And that is basically has been great because I can reserve staff for that particular project. I can buy the materials ahead of time instead of being out of pocket, which I used to. I used to pay my
Mhm.
woodworker all this money, order
Oh,
my glass, and I was always out. So the
yeah.
client, the client would pay for some of the cost, but I'm basically taking on that financial burden for
Right.
a full 8 months, which was really hard. And so
Yeah.
between those Shopify Capital loans, that's where that really helped with cash flow. And now that I've changed things, I just have to get better at getting a system going and kind of
Yeah.
consistency, but it's helping a lot.
That's so great to hear.
Hmm.
Like, now,
Hmm.
are you paying yourself, like, a comfortable amount? Like, how long did it take for you to, like, finally kind of pay yourself what you're worth?
So it took me about a year. I still don't make what I made before, but
Yeah.
I'm working many more, I mean, technically working less hours. So, you know, I worked really long hours being in the event industry, and I was also on someone else's schedule.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm working on basically my kids are start school at 9:10, so I get to work about 9:30. I have to leave here at 3 o'clock to pick up my kids for 3:20. So it's a very short work day. Now I'm working a lot at night. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing about entrepreneurship is like I have no idea how much I know how much I'm making,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm making actually less than someone working at a coffee shop a year and a half to start paying myself a livable wage, I would say, to where I'm able to still kind of keep my lifestyle. I
Right.
don't have as much extra like I used to be so good at saving, investing, and we did a lot more trips. And I think those are kind of sacrifices when you're starting out that you do kind of have to take. So I don't have the savings, I don't have the investments, I don't have the trips that I was taking before, but I have like little versions of that. So, we're still going on trips. They're just a little bit smaller and we're kind of like looking at places differently. And I know I'm going to get back there. It's just that right now I'm kind of keeping things running, making sure that, staff are all paid on time and and the sacrifice is my salary still. But I do see that changing. So that's why it's kind of that slow burn. It's like, okay, you're doing this right now, but eventually you're going to get to hopefully a place where you're making more than you did before.
So true. Yeah. It feels like you're
Mhm.
in, like, a growth stage of your business.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
What advice would you give, like, another woman entrepreneur that's listening right now?
I would, it's almost a warning. Don't become an entrepreneur if you want to eventually go back to working for someone else because it's never going to work. There's a certain feeling, and I'm sure you know this, there's a certain feeling of the amount of work and the amount of grind that you're putting in, even though that hustle culture, we're starting to see a flip on that and saying, don't hustle,
Yeah.
live and take breaths. So there's a balance, obviously. But I think once you work for yourself and you have that room to breathe and you have that room to make the decisions on what you're focusing on, that whole saying everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, that's true. But it's a much different 24 hours when every single thing that you're doing in your life is for you. It's very hard to go back to grinding. I shouldn't say working because working is great. You work away, someone pays you a salary. You show up, they give you a salary. But if you're a person, and I don't know if you're type A like me or a lot of women, where we just want to do so amazing at our job and we're going to work those hours, we're going to succeed, we're going to do great, we're going to climb the ladder. If you're that person, which a lot of us women are, it's
Yeah.
very hard to go back to doing that and then not feeling this, what is it all like? What does it all
Like a
mean? Why am I doing
fulfillment.
all this? Why am I up at 1 a.m. for someone else? It's so different being up at 1 a.m., knowing that I'm doing it for me and I get to go drop off my kids at school. It's so different. That's my advice. Once you go entrepreneurship, you never go back,
So
or it's
true.
hard to at least, right?
And
hmm
did you feel like you had a good mindset, like going into entrepreneurship, like even with not being able to pay yourself just as much? Or did you have like corporate in the back of your mind? Like that is an option,
So,
worst case.
oh, I always thought I'd be going back to corporate. I thought this was kind of a fun little thing that I would do and try out, and I would do kind of as a side thing, and then I'd just get over it and then go back.
Yeah.
Just because I lived and breathed corporate. It was just I was wearing suits to work every day. I was traveling downtown Toronto. It was like it was just in my blood to, you know, show up 9 to 5, show up, do the work, go home, and do a great job. And that was my life. And it was kind of like I enjoyed, going out for lunch with other people in the industry and going to different events in the industry and just it was such a different lifestyle. And now I look back and it's almost exhausting to think about. But when you're in different stages of life doing different things, the exhaustion is there, but it's just different types, right?
Right.
And I never thought that I would be able to do entrepreneurship full time. I didn't think anyone would want what I was offering. I didn't think I could figure out all the website stuff, the finance stuff, the marketing. Those are none of those things. I had no experience in any of that. So no, I definitely thought I'd be back in corporate within a year. I said I'd give myself a year. That's what I always said, which is a good thing to do, right? Yet
Right.
you also have to call it for what it is. If it's not working, you gotta go back because bills need to get paid, right? So
Right. Did you have
mhm.
like mentors and like a supportive community at the beginning when you were starting up?
I had family members that have done entrepreneurship. So my twin brother, for example, he's owned a business his like our whole adult life. He always had a side gig, and he grew it to, he made it he did very, very well, and he had a team, and he was someone that I confided in. I didn't know a lot of friends that were entrepreneurs at all, really. All my friends that I had made were basically in legal as I was, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a lonely place as an entrepreneur. That I had heard that also before, and I didn't get it. But you think that when you're an entrepreneur that all your friends are going to understand.
They
Oh, but
don't.
you don't have a boss. Like, come have lunch. I'm like, you don't understand. If I come have lunch for 2 hours, I'm not like a lady of leisure. If I go have lunch with you, I'm not going to get two clients frames out. Like you're
Yeah.
always thinking, okay, I'm accountable to my clients.
Yeah.
Yes, they're accountable to their boss, but they have set lunch hours. They have set vacation days. That was the one thing that was so hard. Everyone's like, make sure you set aside time for vacation, but it's so hard to do. Step away from your business. And that's
Right.
the goal, right? You want to get it operationalized so you can step away. And that is my goal. I haven't been able to do that. I actually just went on a 4-day vacation with my girlfriends to Bahamas. Like we do it once a year, every single year, same time every year. But it's only 4 days. That's the only amount of time that we can do. So it's that's definitely the hard part is kind of getting that in my head that okay, eventually you're gonna get to that place.
Right. And were you able to disconnect for those 4 days?
Yeah, I was actually. I didn't put an out of office on because it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so only 2 business days.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I can answer I can answer the odd email, and I did, but other than that, yes, because my work is physical. It's not a lot. There is administrative stuff, and I didn't touch any of that. But if there was a client asking about stuff that was happening on the weekend, I definitely answered them. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's not stressful. I'm talking to happy brides. That's the thing, right? Answering
That's so
emails are not
true.
the same anymore. So,
Yeah. And what do you like to do like for fun?
um, honestly, I don't really, other than hanging out with my kids, I don't do a lot anymore. I used to play sport. I used to do a lot more, but I think I love what I do so much. It sounds so cliche, but I wake up thinking, when can I get to work? When can I do this? I wish I had more hours. Even when I'm going home at 3, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had 5 more hours, even though it's not just because I have the work to do
Yeah.
and the stress of like producing. It's also because I actually love it. You
Enjoy what you
you
do.
feel this, yeah, I actually love it. So that's been an interesting thing. So it's almost my hobby is my
Your
life, and my kids are my life. And you know, they say find something that you love and you never work a day in your life. And I was like, oh, that's so silly. No one finds that, right? But
Yeah.
I did. So
That's so cool. And what's
yeah.
like what's next for like Parched Floral, like 3 to 5 years?
Honestly, that's a hard one. You're not supposed to say the word honestly, by the way, because you don't actually know.
No.
You just gotta like it's it's so hard to say because I don't even know what 3 to 5 years looks like in any entrepreneurial journey. Am I supposed to scale? Am I supposed to go smaller? Am I supposed to increase prices and work less? Am I supposed to reduce prices and work more and hire more? That's the hard part is okay,
Yeah.
what do I want to do in 5 years? What do I want the business to look like from my lens? What do I want out of life? What do I want out of my day to day? And that's something that takes time to sit down and map out. And I am in a not a program, but I do now have a coach, a business coach who focuses in on mother entrepreneurs. And why this is different than other coaches that I've had along the way is because she understands that our work days are between
Mhm.
9:30 and 3, and then it's after they go to sleep. But even after they go to sleep, they wake up and you don't get focused work, and I actually can't jump into the studio and work. I've got to be there if they need something. So that's been a really big game changer because she understands kind of my restrictions and coaches me through that lens instead of just saying just work more or
Just do
just
it. Yeah.
just do it. You just do it, grind it for 2 more years. So I think in 5 years, what's next for Parched Floral is we have always been accessible to everyone because I do want any bride that wants to save their flowers to save their flowers. But now that there's so many other preservationists out there, I
Yeah.
think I've kind of moved beyond the entry level preservation and the quality of my products. I feel like I'm kind of either mid to high end from a product perspective. And so now I think my next step is actually increasing my prices. I'm going to lose a lot of clients that, I had when I was starting out,
Yeah.
but there are other artists that can service them. Um, and I do want to focus on producing less, same quality, and
Mhm.
kind of getting a kind of handle on that because right now I'm just taking on, taking on, taking on, and that's been very tough because I didn't want to turn away business like I used to be able to because
Yeah.
now I have staff. So I'm like, okay, well, the more work I get, the more my staff can work, and that's good for them. Like that's one of the things I wanted to do is, and I kind of tried to explain to the dragons and the investors, which they didn't show this part, but basically, I'm not in entrepreneurship just to make money. I also wanted to start a business where I could hire other moms and other
Mhm.
even like possibly down the road elderly people or um, special needs teens that might need sensory. Like this is a very quiet environment. There's no
Yeah.
skills required to do this job. It's more showing, and it's a slow, calm work. So I thought, okay, I don't want to just make money, make money. I actually want to pay salaries to people that might not typically get paid or it would be very hard to work. So that's kind of, I think that's the next 3 to 5 years. I do want to, all the people that work for me are moms, but I also want to enter in, okay, you're a senior on a set salary. How can I
Yeah.
give you a couple hours a week to do something that's fun? You play with flowers, you get
That's so
extra income
inspiring.
because a lot of them need that. Yeah. And you know what? Like I was so close to my grandparents, and when they're on a set salary, it's true. You can pay the bills,
Yeah.
but like you have to budget. And so it'd be really nice to give an influx of money to different people that are kind of overlooked. You can't get a job when you're,
Mhm.
there's ageism when you're over a certain age, and also if you have special needs, there's a lot of accommodations that are required. Luckily the workforce is more adaptable to that, but
Yeah.
not as much as we should be, right?
It's
And
not
that's
as
not,
inclusive.
yeah, and it's not because of them. It's just, it is what it is. Some jobs require technical skills, some
Right.
jobs require physical, and this requires neither. You literally can come in, and as long as you have attention to detail, and even if you don't, there's a job for you. And that's what's kind of nice, is you can be scattered like me. I'm definitely ADHD. I am high energy, and then I'm low energy, and I just move from my different parts of my business in whatever mood I am that day.
Yeah.
And same with the girls that work for me. There's different jobs. I'm like, if you're stressed out, you haven't slept from like kids, like playing
Yeah.
with flowers is a pretty good option for you, right?
Right.
Hmm.
I love that flexibility
Hmm.
and like the community element and so inspiring.
Yeah, that's my goal. 3 to 5 years. We'll figure that part out.
And what's the best way for our audience to connect with you and support your business?
So I'm very active on Instagram. Because I'm over 40, I don't use the other, like I probably should be on YouTube. I probably should be on TikTok.
Yeah.
Snapchat, I downloaded Snapchat. I am on all of those things. I'm not active. Instagram is where you can find me at Parched Floral, and online on our website if you want to order or you want to check out our FAQs to see kind of what we're all about. It's all there.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for joining me on her Profit Era today. I'll share all your details in the show notes.
Great. Thank you so much, Cindy. It was a pleasure talking to you.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at @CindyKumar and I'll send over all the details.